Good day everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back to a new review. Well, UMIDIGI has two brand new devices, the Z1 and the Z1 Pro, and the phones are very similar, so they have the exact same specs. So they both have the Helio P20 CPU. This is an octa-core CPU. We also have 6 gigs of RAM with 64 gigs of internal storage, and they are both running Android 7. The main difference in between these two phones is the fact that on the Z1 Pro we have an AMOLED panel and on the Z1 we have an IPS panel. So that's basically the main difference in between them. Now, because that AMOLED panel is also slimmer, that makes the Z1 Pro also a slimmer device. So we have a phone under 7mm thick, which is pretty good for a phone these days. Like anyone else, I prefer the AMOLED panel over the IPS panel, but only because the colors are a bit more vibrant, the blacks are blacker, and well, everything seems like it's painted on the screen, like you don't actually have a screen. But overall, even the one with the IPS panel still looks good. They both get bright enough so you can actually see them in direct sunlight, and they both have really good viewing angles as well. One of the differences that I found in between these two phones is the fact that on the Z1 Pro, so the red one, you can actually touch the screen in 10 places in the same time and the screen will register. And on the Z1 you can only touch the screen in 5 places in the same time and the screen will register. However, the screen sensitivity is good on both of them and I haven't had any issues whenever I was typing or playing games. So if you can afford the extra 50 bucks, I do recommend that you get the Z1 Pro over the Z1 just because the screen is nicer, the phone feels slimmer and it feels more premium whenever you're using this. So it feels more like a phone that's like 500-600 bucks compared to the other one. The other one feels cheaper somehow. Now, if you can help me out by pressing that like button, it would be absolutely amazing and it's gonna make a huge difference for this video. Alright, moving on to the phone's body. So we have metal on the sides, metal on the back. The phone just feels very premium whenever you're holding it, and it reminds me a lot of an iPhone for some reason, an iPhone 7 Plus. And mostly if you get the one with the red color, well, that red color just looks spectacular. But there is something about red phones in general. On the back we also have the antenna lines at the bottom, and on top we also have dual cameras. We have a 13 megapixel camera and a 5 megapixel camera and a dual tone flash. So I had very high expectations for the cameras on this phone because the UMIDIGI Z Pro had the two 13 megapixel cameras on the back and it could take some really good looking pictures. Well, it's not the same with this one. So the phone can record in 4K, so video, but the video doesn't look that great. And here is a quick sample of how it looks. This is a quick 4K video sample taken with the UMIDIGI Z1 Pro. We don't have any type of image stabilization. As you can probably tell, the video is quite shaky and not very smooth. And as you've seen, the video quality, it's far from spectacular. Now, moving to picture taking. So the camera app looks identical to the camera app that we've seen for past UMI devices, and it performs quite well. I mean, it's fast, it doesn't take that long to take pictures. It takes a bit longer when you're taking pictures with the HDR mode, but overall it performs good and it has enough options to satisfy anyone's needs. We even have a Pro mode in there as well. Now, the picture quality, it's not amazing either. The pictures that you're gonna take with the bokeh effect, well, the phone basically makes a circle in the middle and that's around the subject, and everything outside of that circle it's blurred out. And I have to be honest, the pictures that I took with the bokeh effect don't look good at all, and well, they're kind of unusable. So I was very disappointed to see that just because on the UMIDIGI Z Pro the pictures look so good. Moving on to regular pictures, so the pictures that you're gonna take with the 13 megapixel camera on the back, well, those are starting to look much better, but far from exceptional. Some pictures are underexposed, some pictures are overexposed, and you never know when you're gonna take a good looking picture. Now, you can take good looking pictures as well, but it takes a bit of practice and patience. Now, if you take pictures at night time, well, those don't look good at all. So they're very grainy, out of focus, and you can barely see what's happening in the pictures. So the rear cameras on the Z1 and the Z1 Pro are the weakest point for these phones. Now everything else I kind of like except for the cameras. Now moving on to the fingerprint scanners, because we also have fingerprint scanners on the front in the home button. Now the fingerprint scanner on the Z1 is somewhat faster than the fingerprint scanner that I have on the Z1 Pro. I don't know why that happens, but it's definitely a bit faster. Aside from that, the fingerprint scanners are accurate 99% of the time, so no issues there. And the fingerprint scanner can also be used as a home button or a multitasking button. So if you hold the home button pressed for a couple of seconds, you get into multitasking. And the button left to that home button, it's actually a menu button. And again, I'm not sure why they chose to do that because it's just not that practical. And if you're not a big fan of the physical buttons, you can always bring up the on-screen buttons and you can actually change those around. So if you don't like where the menu button is sitting, you can just move it on the other side and so on. Since we are back to the front of the phone once again, on top there we also have a notification light, we have a 5 megapixel camera, the speaker and a couple of sensors. Now the picture quality from that 5 megapixel front facing camera, it's decent but not the greatest. So if you have a lot of light, the pictures do turn out okay, but as soon as you don't have enough light, the pictures become grainy and quite blurry once again. So not a great camera on the front of this device either. So leaving the cameras aside, inside this phone we have a 4000 mAh battery and it's the same with the Z1 as well. Now the battery life on this phone is the best that I've seen from any UMIDIGI device, because I did have quite a few UMIDIGI devices in the past. So with this one I was able to get about 24 hours of usage on one charge, so one charge for 24 hours, and out of that about 7 hours of screen on time. On the Z1 it was only about 6 hours and a half, but very close to this one. So definitely a good experience with the battery on this device, over 7 hours of screen on time. Moving on to another positive thing for the Z1 and the Z1 Pro, out of that 64 gigs of internal storage that we get to the device, we have about 54 gigs left, and the speeds that we get for the internal storage are quite good. On top of that, the phone can take an SD card, so you can either have two SIM cards or a SIM card and an SD card, and the SD card can also be installed as internal storage. Even though these two phones look very similar to the iPhone 7 Plus, we actually have a 3.5mm audio jack, and that's placed at the top of the device, and the sound coming out of the audio jack is also great, so the sound is loud, crisp and with a lot of bass. At the bottom we have the microphone, we have a USB-C port and the speaker, and surprisingly enough the speaker sounds quite good, but here is a quick sample of how the speaker sounds. The phone also supports OTG, and that means that you can plug in any USB stick and the phone will be able to read whatever you have on that USB stick. And the phone also supports fast charging. However, this phone doesn't charge as fast as more premium devices, so it's still gonna take you around 2 hours and 10 minutes to fully charge this device from 0 to 100. Performance-wise, well, that Helio P20 CPU that they used for the Z1 and the Z1 Pro, well, it's not the fastest CPU out there. So clearly the scores that we got on the AnTuTu benchmark and the Geekbench 4 will show you that, so not the highest scores out there. Even with those scores, I haven't really had any issues with the phone's performance. Now, the phone may not be as fast as a OnePlus 5, for example, but still opening and closing apps, it's done in a decent enough time, and realistically using any app, it's done without any issues. The browser works great, so zooming in, zooming out, scrolling up, scrolling down, it's done decent enough, and no issues with that. On the YouTube app, the maximum resolution is 1080p, which is the screen's resolution, and you can select 60 frames per second as well. And have I mentioned how beautiful the screen was? All the videos that I watched at 1080p seem to work good as well. Gaming, it's decent as well, but again, it's not gonna be as good as the gaming that you would get on a OnePlus 5. However, most games that you're gonna try and download from the Google Play Store will still work quite good. Now, the phone gets a bit hot whenever you're playing games, mostly around the UMIDIGI logo there, but it never got that hot to actually turn off. The GPS unit inside them seems to be better than previous UMI devices as well. It only takes a few seconds for the device to find your location, and using Google Maps or any other navigation app will work good as well. The phone also has all the sensors that you'd expect from a flagship device, and all of the sensors that are available seem to work good as well without any issues. For connectivity, the phone can connect to 4G networks, and it was actually connected to the 4G network the entire time that I've used it, and it also has dual band Wi-Fi. The speeds that I got over Wi-Fi and the 4G network are decent and normal for most phones these days. For software, the phone is using Android 7, and like most UMI devices, this is very close to stock Android, and that's a great thing. Now, compared to previous UMI devices, this one seems much better optimized. So moving in between screens, opening apps, closing apps, and even multitasking is done very fluently, and that's a good thing for a phone that has the Helio P20 CPU. The settings app is also very simple and without too many added features, and I don't really have any issues with that because realistically nobody's using those added features that we get from a lot of manufacturers. So to conclude this video, I prefer the Z1 Pro over the Z1, but only because of the screen and the way that the phone feels whenever you're holding it. It feels smaller, it feels more premium in a way. So definitely go for the Z1 Pro if you can afford the extra 50 bucks. Now, the disappointing thing about both devices are the cameras, so the rear cameras. The front cameras are okay, and that's pretty normal for phones these days. But the rear cameras, I wish they would have been improved, because that's the biggest flaw that I found for this phone. Other than that, everything seemed to work quite good. So if we could get a better camera, at least the cameras that we had on the Z Pro, yeah, that would have made this phone close to perfection. But like anything else, well, nothing is perfect. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, press that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.